The courtroom was buzzing. Reporters snapped photos, their cameras clicking with intensity, as the clock ticked down to the moment of truth. Elon Musk sat in the defendant's chair, his usually calm demeanor now taut with tension. Today wasn't just any day. The courtroom wasn't just filled with reporters. It was packed with millions of eyes, both in person and across screens worldwide. The case against him was one that could unravel everything he had worked so tirelessly to build. Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink. His name was synonymous with innovation, but today, it felt like it could all come crashing down. The judge, an older man with graying hair and glasses perched on the edge of his nose, glanced at the papers in front of him and smirked. His eyes flicked over to Musk, as though looking for some kind of weakness to latch onto. Musk sat stiff, his hands clasped in front of him. He had dealt with countless skeptics, but this was different. There was something about the judge's attitude that irked him. "Mr. Musk," the judge began, his voice dripping with mockery, "you are claiming that a company as influential as yours didn't foresee these problems?" He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Do you really expect us to believe that?" The court fell into a silence, broken only by the rustling of papers and the soft hum of the air conditioning. Musk's lips twitched slightly, an involuntary reaction to the judge's tone, but he said nothing. He had learned long ago not to let his emotions cloud his judgment. His team of lawyers shifted uneasily beside him, each one trying to decipher the judge's true intentions. "Judge, with all due respect," one of Musk's lawyers began, speaking with the confidence of someone who had practiced this moment 1,000 times, "the evidence clearly shows." But the judge cut him off with a laugh, a short, dismissive chuckle that echoed in the quiet courtroom. "Evidence? Mr. Musk, I'm afraid you're a little too optimistic." "But of course, you've made a career out of being optimistic, haven't you? After all, you did say you were going to take people to Mars." He raised his eyebrows, as if the very thought was preposterous. Musk's jaw tightened, but his expression remained stoic. He was used to people underestimating him, to people laughing in his face. But today, something felt different. There was an edge to the laughter that struck a nerve deeper than usual. "Perhaps," the judge continued, savoring the moment, "the world isn't quite ready for the future you're trying to sell." Musk's eyes narrowed, and he shifted slightly in his seat, ready to speak. But before he could open his mouth, the doors of the courtroom swung open with a creak. Everyone turned, their attention shifting toward the sudden interruption. A man, tall and unremarkable in appearance, stepped into the courtroom. He wore a dark suit that seemed a little too formal, his face expressionless, but his eyes were sharp, piercing, almost. His presence sent an odd chill through the room. Something about him didn't belong. The judge, momentarily distracted, narrowed his eyes at the stranger. "Can we help you, sir?" Without saying a word, the man reached inside his jacket, his movements smooth but deliberate, and pulled out a badge. He held it up for all to see, a shiny, metallic object that reflected the light in the room. The words on it were clear, but its meaning wasn't. The man placed the badge on the table in front of him and then spoke, his voice cold and precise. "I believe I have an important matter to discuss with Mr. Musk." Musk's eyes flicked to the badge. His heart skipped a beat, but he quickly masked the surprise with a steady gaze. The badge wasn't something ordinary. This was no local law enforcement agent. This was something else entirely. The courtroom was dead silent. Everyone stared at the stranger, unsure of what to make of this sudden turn of events. The reporters were no longer snapping pictures. Instead, they whispered among themselves, exchanging nervous glances. "Who the hell are you?" the judge asked, clearly annoyed by the interruption but also cautious. The man didn't flinch. "I am an agent of a federal agency," he said, his tone unyielding, "and I have information that changes the course of this trial." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room. Musk's mind raced. His gut told him that something was wrong. This wasn't just a random agent showing up out of nowhere. This was bigger than that. "Your Honor," the man continued, turning his gaze to the judge, "I'm afraid this court is operating under false pretenses. The case at hand isn't about breach of contract or negligence. It's much more complicated than that." The judge's eyebrows shot up, and for the first time since the trial began, there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "What are you talking about?" The agent leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "What if I told you that Elon Musk, this very man you've mocked, is at the center of something much more dangerous than you realize?" He paused, letting the weight of his words hang in the air. "What if I told you the very technology he's created could change the balance of power in this world?" Musk's heart beat faster. This wasn't just a legal battle, it was a war. And somehow, he had become the pawn. The courtroom erupted into chaos. The judge slammed his gavel down, trying to regain control, but the damage was done. The agent had planted a seed of doubt in everyone's mind. No one in that room was thinking about the case anymore. They were thinking about the truth behind the agent's words. Musk remained seated, his mind racing. This was no ordinary trial. This was something much bigger, something that involved forces he had never even imagined. The agent wasn't done. His next words would change everything. "Mr. Musk," he said, addressing the billionaire directly, "you've been unknowingly working for a much larger organization than you realize. And now, we need you to make a choice." Musk's head snapped up. The agent's words weren't just a warning. They were a promise and a threat. The judge's face had gone pale, and the courtroom buzzed with unease. There were no more jokes, no more mocking laughter. Just uncertainty. Musk could feel it, too. His entire life had been leading to this moment. Everything was about to change. And no one, least of all him, knew what was coming next. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk was no stranger to pressure. From an early age, he had been groomed to face challenges, but not in the way most people think. It wasn't a pampered childhood for Musk, but one filled with intensity, a sense of being different, and a deep desire to change the world. Born in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971, Elon was always a curious child. His mother, May, was a model and dietitian, while his father, Errol, was an electromechanical engineer. Growing up in a house where intellectual pursuits were always at the forefront, Elon became fascinated by technology and the potential it had to reshape the future. But, as is often the case with geniuses, this early spark of brilliance was met with resistance. He was a quiet, introspective kid, often teased by classmates for his awkwardness and out-of-the-box thinking. Elon's early life wasn't just about childhood triumphs. It was about survival. The bullying he endured was severe, and it wasn't unusual for him to be pushed around or ignored. Yet, Musk's resilience was forged through this adversity. By the time he was 12, he had taught himself computer programming and created a video game called Blaster, which he sold for a few $100s. This wasn't just a moment of pride. It was the first sign that Musk would never settle for the status quo. His mind was always racing, pushing him further than most people would dare to go. But as his intellect blossomed, so did his isolation. He was never part of the popular crowd. Instead, Musk spent his teenage years submerged in books and ideas, retreating into his own world of coding, engineering, and physics. These passions only grew stronger as he aged, and by the time he left South Africa for Canada, Musk had already envisioned a future in which he could change humanity's path. Arriving in Canada at the age of 17 to attend Queen's University was a pivotal moment for Musk. It wasn't just about escaping the shadow of his father or leaving behind the challenges of South Africa. It was about finding a new home, a place where his dreams could take root. From there, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned degrees in both economics and physics, two fields that would complement each other perfectly in his vision of the future. But Musk wasn't the type to sit comfortably in a classroom. He had always felt the pull to go beyond what was expected of him. And that desire led him to the Silicon Valley tech world, where, by the late 1990s, he would launch his first major venture, Zip2. It was a small tech startup, but it proved to be a springboard for what was to come. Zip2 was sold to Compaq for nearly $300 million in 1999, a deal that propelled Musk into the world of multimillion-dollar deals. But he wasn't satisfied with just one success. The sale allowed him to found X.com, which would later become PayPal, and be acquired by eBay for $1.5 billion. For many, that would have been enough. Enough to retire, to take a step back and enjoy the rewards of their hard work. But for Musk, it was just the beginning. Throughout the years, Musk had built an empire, and yet he felt a void. He could never settle for merely creating products that made money. His vision was always bigger. With his wealth, he set out to do what others thought was impossible. The idea of taking humanity to Mars wasn't some pipe dream. It was a concrete goal. SpaceX, Tesla, and even his forays into neural technology were all about pushing the limits of human potential. Yet, Musk's past had a shadow that not many people knew about, the pressure that had built up in him over the years. As a boy, he was never given the love or validation that other children were. His relationship with his father, especially, was strained. Elon Musk, a successful but emotionally distant figure, wasn't one to praise or encourage his children. In fact, he was often cold and harsh, leading to a fractured father-son relationship that would influence Elon's drive for perfection. His relationship with his mother was also complicated. Though she had always been supportive, she wasn't immune to the pressures of Musk's relentless work ethic. Despite his success, she would often worry about how much Elon pushed himself and the toll it took on him emotionally and physically. But none of that had stopped him. Musk pushed forward, never looking back at the hardships he'd faced, the broken relationships, or the emotional scars. He was driven by a singular purpose: to leave a mark on the world that would forever change humanity's future. Still, even with all his accomplishments, the ghosts of his past lingered in the corners of his mind. He had always felt a need to prove himself, to justify the success he'd achieved. It was as if he had to outdo not just others but himself, constantly battling an inner fear of failure that drove him to work tirelessly toward his ultimate goal: changing the world. Now, as he sat in that courtroom, Musk couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. He had come so far, but this moment, the one that could break him or make him, was one he had never anticipated. For the first time, he realized that his life had become something bigger than just a series of successes and failures. It had become a battleground. And then there was the mysterious agent, who had just walked into that courtroom, with a badge that turned the entire case on its head. Musk could feel the air around him change. This was not just a legal case. It wasn't about a lawsuit or a breach of contract anymore. It was about something much more dangerous. But what? And why him? Musk's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of his lawyer whispering in his ear, asking him to focus. It was time to respond. But even as his lawyer turned to him for direction, Musk felt that everything had shifted. The agent's words echoed in his mind, pulling him toward a deeper truth. What if his life had always been leading to this? What if the world, the future, the destiny of mankind, was far more connected to him than he had ever realized? The answer wasn't clear. But for the first time, Musk felt that his role in this unfolding drama was about to take on a much larger meaning. The courtroom felt suffocating. The air was thick with uncertainty as whispers rippled through the room, each person trying to make sense of what had just happened. Elon Musk, though normally composed, could feel his mind racing. His heart pounded in his chest. The man who had just walked in, the agent with the mysterious badge, had thrown everything into chaos. His very presence was a puzzle Musk wasn't sure he wanted to solve. The judge, now visibly rattled, stood up from his seat. His gavel struck with an authority that tried, and failed, to restore order to the disarray. "Enough!" the judge bellowed, his voice cutting through the whispers. "Mr. Musk, this is highly irregular. I expect you to clarify this immediately." Musk leaned forward in his seat, his hands now gripping the arms of the chair. His lawyer, a seasoned litigator named John Calloway, was already moving to address the court. But Musk held up his hand, stopping him. Calloway looked at him, confusion in his eyes, but Musk simply shook his head. Musk didn't reply. His mind was still reeling from the implications. If this was truly the beginning of something larger, then he was already involved, whether he liked it or not. And yet, a small part of him couldn't help but feel a spark of curiosity. What if this was the moment that he had been waiting for? What if this was the opportunity to push humanity towards something even greater than he had imagined? Mars? Yes, but perhaps even beyond that. Perhaps there was something more to this story. something that had been unfolding long before he even realized it. As Calloway continued to research, Musk stared out the window, his thoughts drifting to the vast expanse of space. In the midst of all the chaos, one thought remained clear. His mission had always been about the future, and now, it seemed, that future was about to take an entirely new, unexpected direction. But first, they would have to face the hidden truth that had been lurking beneath the surface. Elon Musk sat in the quiet of his living room, the weight of the day's events pressing down on him. The last few hours felt like a blur, but the more he thought about Agent Caldwell's words, the more he realized how deep this rabbit hole might go. Caldwell hadn't just been some government agent showing up to disrupt a court case. There was a plan at play, a larger agenda, and Musk was now in the center of it. But what was the plan? And more importantly, who was behind it? His mind buzzed with possibilities. It wasn't just his own companies or his own future on the line anymore. It was something far more insidious. The web Caldwell had hinted at was more tangled than he could ever have imagined. A global conspiracy, spanning governments, corporations, and maybe even intelligence agencies. The thought was enough to make him question everything he had done in the last decade. His every move, every decision, was now under a microscope, with forces he couldn't even see pulling the strings. And yet, despite the chaos and uncertainty, part of him felt a strange sense of purpose. Musk had always thrived under pressure, always found clarity amid chaos. He'd faced down the impossible before, whether it was saving Tesla from bankruptcy or launching rockets to Mars. This, whatever it was no different. But as the minutes ticked by and Calloway worked tirelessly at the laptop, digging through public records and encrypted databases, Musk couldn't shake the sense that the stakes had just gotten far higher. The hum of the laptop's fan filled the room as Calloway typed furiously, scanning through document after document. After what felt like an eternity, he stopped, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. "I've found something," Calloway said, his voice a mix of caution and uncertainty. "It's not much, but it's a start." Musk leaned forward, his pulse quickening. "What did you find?" Calloway turned the laptop toward him, showing a series of government documents, some classified, others heavily redacted. "This is an internal memo from Homeland Security," he said, pointing to a file titled Project Apollo. Musk's brow furrowed as he read the words on the screen. "Project Apollo?" Musk muttered. "That sounds familiar." "It should," Calloway said, his eyes narrowing. Project Apollo was a top-secret government initiative that began back in the early 2000s. It was designed to track and influence emerging technologies, particularly those in the space and energy sectors. From what I can gather, your companies, Tesla, SpaceX, and even Neuralink, were quietly monitored, their progress closely followed. Musk sat back in his chair, the revelation hitting him like a tidal wave. For years, he had prided himself on being independent, on revolutionizing industries and charting a course for the future. But the idea that he had been monitored, tracked, and possibly manipulated by the very government he had hoped to change was unsettling. How far did this go? Was everything he had built just a pawn in someone else's game? "Wait," Musk said, a thought forming in his mind. "If they've been tracking me for that long, why haven't I been told about it? Why didn't I see any signs of this before today?" Calloway scrolled down, continuing his search through the files. "There's more." The documents reference something called the Initiators. It's not clear who they are, but they seem to be a group of powerful individuals, possibly even global leaders, who have been guiding the course of these projects behind the scenes. Musk's head spun. Global leaders? So, this is bigger than just the U.S. government? "Yes," Calloway confirmed. "From the looks of it, this isn't just a national issue. It's international. These initiators are steering the direction of technological progress on a global scale. Your work with Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink? It's all part of their larger vision." The room fell into a heavy silence as Musk absorbed the magnitude of what Calloway had uncovered. For years, he had been driven by a singular vision: to push the boundaries of technology, to solve humanity's most pressing problems. But now, he was left wondering if he had been a mere player in a much larger game, one that was far beyond his control. Calloway broke the silence. We need to find out who these initiators are. We need to know if you're being manipulated or if you're truly in control of your own future. Musk nodded slowly, his mind racing. And what about Caldwell? He seems to know something. He said I've been working for them all along. We'll have to find out who he really is, Calloway said. There's no way this agent is operating alone. Someone is pulling his strings too. Musk stood up, pacing the room. We need answers, John. We can't wait. If these people are as powerful as I think they are, we have to move fast before they make their next move. Calloway met Musk's gaze. I agree, but we have to be careful. Whoever is behind this, they won't hesitate to do whatever it takes to maintain control. Musk stopped pacing and turned to face his lawyer. We're not backing down. Not now. Not ever. The next few days were a blur of action. Calloway worked around the clock, pulling strings to uncover more information about Project Apollo and the shadowy group known only as the Initiators. Musk, meanwhile, threw himself into his companies, pushing forward as though nothing had changed. But deep down, he knew that everything had changed. He couldn't ignore the feeling that he was being watched, monitored, controlled. His every move was under a microscope, and it was only a matter of time before someone came for him. One evening, after a long day of work, Musk sat alone in his office at Tesla's headquarters, staring out the window at the sprawling city below. His mind wandered back to the early days of SpaceX, to the moments when he had first realized the true power of space exploration. He had believed then that the sky was the limit. But now, he wasn't so sure. The very technologies he had worked so hard to bring to life had the potential to change the world, but they also had the potential to destroy it. A soft knock at the door broke his train of thought. Calloway entered, his face grim. Elon, I've got news, he said. Musk turned to face him. What is it? Calloway handed him a folder. I've got a lead on the Initiators. It's not much, but it's something. Musk took the folder and opened it, scanning the contents quickly. His eyes widened as he read the names inside. These weren't just any names. These were some of the most powerful individuals in the world, and it seemed they had been orchestrating the future of technology for decades. These people, they've been shaping everything, Musk said, his voice barely a whisper. They've controlled the course of history, and now they're pulling me into their game. Calloway nodded. It's bigger than we thought, Elon. They've been pulling the strings for years, and they're not about to stop now. Musk's hand clenched around the folder. He had always known that the future was uncertain, but he had never imagined that it could be this dangerous. The game was no longer just about business, technology, or innovation. It was about power, control, and the hidden forces that shaped the world. And Musk was about to learn just how deep that web really went. The night stretched on, and Elon Musk sat in the dim light of his office, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. The names in the folder Calloway had given him danced in front of his eyes, each one representing a piece of a puzzle he didn't know how to solve. People like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Richard Branson, names Musk had admired, respected, and even competed with for years. But now, seeing them on a list of shadowy initiators, those same names felt like a threat, like invisible hands pulling at the strings of the world, manipulating the future in ways Musk hadn't even considered. Elon, Calloway interrupted his thoughts, his voice calm but urgent. We need to get ahead of this. If they've been watching you for this long, we have to assume they already know we're onto them. Musk exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I've always known there were forces at play behind the scenes. But this is different. I didn't sign up for this. Calloway gave him a sympathetic look. No one does, but it's clear that you've been involved whether you knew it or not. The only way out is to play this smart, before they play us. Musk leaned back in his chair, his mind still reeling. For years, he had been driven by a desire to shape the future, to make life on Mars a reality, to bring clean energy to the masses, to revolutionize transportation. But now, every step he took seemed to have been a part of a game he wasn't even aware of. What if his every success had been orchestrated, every breakthrough a piece in a larger puzzle? And if so, what did they want from him now? I've been thinking about Caldwell, Musk said, his voice steady, though his mind was anything but. He was too calm today. He knew exactly what to say to rattle me, to make me question everything. Calloway nodded. I don't trust him, but we need to dig deeper. If he's part of this, then he's not just an agent. He's a piece of something much bigger, and we need to know who's calling the shots. Exactly. Musk's eyes narrowed as the realization set in. Caldwell is just the tip of the iceberg. But what's really under the surface? And why now? Why didn't they move earlier, when Tesla was struggling or SpaceX was just getting started? I think the time is now, Calloway said, pausing. With Mars on the horizon, your work at Neuralink, and the advancements Tesla's making in energy storage, there's something about the way the world is shifting that they need to control. Maybe they see your vision as a threat. Musk swallowed hard. A threat? To who? They already have the power. What could I possibly be doing that's so dangerous? Calloway's face remained grim. That's what we need to find out. The fact that you're getting so close to the edge of human progress might be the catalyst. If they can't control it, they'll find a way to derail it. You're not just pushing for Mars. You're pushing for humanity's next evolution. If they want to keep the world the way it is, you're a problem. Musk's pulse quickened. A part of him had always suspected that his ambitions could stir up resistance. But to know that there were people behind the scenes, people with immense power, actively working to control the course of human progress, that was something else entirely. I need to get in touch with some people, Musk said suddenly. I have allies. People who can help us. Calloway gave him a knowing look. This isn't something you can handle alone, Elon. But you also can't trust just anyone. We have to be strategic. Musk stood up, his mind already racing with ideas. He knew that if he was going to survive this, he'd need to move quickly and carefully. His usual approach of charging ahead with relentless optimism might not work this time. This time, he had to be cautious, deliberate, because whoever these initiators were, they were always 2 steps ahead. The next day, Musk convened with his most trusted colleagues, those few who had always stood by his side when things seemed impossible. First, he met with Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX's president and COO, who had always been more than just an employee to him. She had been his right hand through countless challenges, and her insight was invaluable. If anyone could help him navigate the minefield he was about to enter, it was Gwynne. Elon, what's going on? She asked, concern etched on her face. This feels bigger than anything we've dealt with before. Musk hesitated for a moment, then shared what little he had learned. There's something much bigger going on. A group of powerful individuals, some of the biggest names in the world, have been watching my companies and possibly manipulating them from the very beginning. Gwynne's eyes widened. Manipulating them? But why? I don't know yet, Musk replied, running a hand through his hair. But it's clear that they've been orchestrating things behind the scenes. They're not just interested in what we're doing with rockets and electric cars. There's something else. Something we're missing. Gwynne's expression hardened. Elon, this could be bigger than you think. If they've been tracking you for so long, there could be more at stake here than we realize. You need to be careful who you trust. I'm already starting to see that, Musk said, his voice firm, which is why I need your help. I need you to dig into their operations. Find out what's going on and what they want from me. Gwynne nodded. You got it. But you're not alone in this. We'll all help you. But let's keep it under wraps for now. If they're really this powerful, they'll be watching everything we do. Agreed, Musk said, feeling a sense of relief. Gwynne had always been a rock for him, and having her by his side now, more than ever, made him feel like there was still hope. The next person Musk turned to was J.B. Straubel, the co-founder of Tesla and one of the most brilliant minds he knew. J.B. was a key part of Tesla's early breakthroughs and had always been someone Musk could rely on when faced with complex problems. Together, they had turned Tesla into the force it was today, and Musk knew he needed J.B.'s insight now more than ever. I don't like the sound of this, Elon, J.B. said after Musk explained the situation. If they've been pulling the strings behind the scenes, then we're not just facing an external threat. We're looking at an inside job. There might be people within your own companies who've been working with them, and that's dangerous. Musk felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that there could be traitors within his own ranks was almost too much to bear. So, you're saying I can't trust anyone? Not without checking everything, JB replied. We have to assume that everyone is a potential leak. Everyone. And if we're going to stop this, we need to figure out who's in on it. As the day wore on, Musk's team got to work, digging deeper into the connections that had formed between his companies, government agencies, and those shadowy figures calling themselves the initiators. Musk couldn't shake the feeling that this was all part of a larger scheme, one he wasn't supposed to understand, let alone defeat. But he was determined. If this was going to be a fight for humanity's future, he wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not ever. The web was tightening around him, but Musk knew one thing for sure. Whoever was pulling the strings, they were about to meet their match. Elon Musk stood in the quiet of his Tesla factory, staring out at the sleek machines and hard-working engineers. The noise of the assembly lines hummed in the background, but to Musk, it felt distant. His mind was elsewhere, racing through the possibilities of what lay ahead. The revelations from the past few days had shaken him to his core, but one thing remained clear. His enemies were no longer just faceless figures. The initiators were a real threat, and they were after something far greater than mere control of his companies. His thoughts were interrupted by a message that flashed on his phone. Gwynne Shotwell was calling. Musk picked up immediately, his heart pounding in his chest. "Elon," Gwynne's voice crackled through the line. "We've got a problem." "What's happened?" Musk asked, his tone urgent. "I've been tracking down leads about the initiators. We've dug up some serious information about their network, but we've hit a dead end. I think someone inside Tesla has been working with them for years." Musk's stomach dropped. "What do you mean, inside Tesla?" "One of our top executives," Gwynne replied, her voice tight with frustration. "He's been funneling data to external parties. I'm not sure if he's part of the larger scheme, but it doesn't look good." Elon's mind raced. Tesla was his brainchild, his vision to bring sustainable energy to the world. The thought that someone within the company could betray that vision felt like a slap in the face. He had built this company from the ground up, and now it seemed like it was being ripped apart from the inside. "Who is it?" Musk asked through gritted teeth. Gwynne paused. "I can't say for sure yet. We're still tracing the connections, but it's someone high up, someone with access to confidential information." Musk's voice grew firm. "We need to handle this carefully. I want full transparency, Gwynne. No secrets. We need to know who's involved, and we need to cut them off before this gets worse." "I'm already on it," she replied. "I'll keep you updated." After the call ended, Musk stood there for a long moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. Whoever was working against him had infiltrated Tesla at the highest levels, which meant they had the power to bring down everything he had worked for. His thoughts turned to SpaceX. If they were in Tesla, they were likely in his other companies too. The web of deceit was spreading, and Musk had no choice but to follow it wherever it led. Back at his office, Musk paced back and forth, his mind racing through plans and contingencies. His usual drive and confidence were tempered now by the growing sense of urgency. If someone was leaking information to the initiators, there was a chance they had already compromised other parts of his operations. What if they were sabotaging SpaceX launches, or even worse, manipulating the technology at Neuralink? He thought about Agent Caldwell, the government agent who had introduced him to this web of lies. Caldwell had been the first hint that something wasn't right. The agent's smooth demeanor, his calm confidence, it had all felt too rehearsed. Caldwell was more than just a government official. He was a piece of a much larger puzzle, and Musk was determined to find out who was behind the scenes pulling the strings. He quickly called Calloway into the room. The lawyer entered, looking as serious as ever. "Have you heard from Gwynne?" Musk asked immediately. "I did," Calloway replied. "She's on top of it. But it sounds like things are getting worse, not better." "I need you to help me dig into Caldwell," Musk said, his tone urgent. "We can't trust him, and I have a feeling he's more than just a government agent. I need to know who he works for and why he's been targeting me." Calloway nodded. "I'll get on it right away. But we need to be careful. If he's working for the initiators, he could have connections that go deeper than we realize." Musk clenched his fists. "I know, but we have to start somewhere. We can't wait for them to make the next move. It's time to take the offensive." As Calloway left to begin his investigation, Musk stared out the window of his office, his mind in overdrive. There was a fight ahead of him, a fight that would determine the future of not just his companies, but the future of humanity itself. The initiators had been controlling the game for far too long, but Musk was ready to take back control. The following days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and strategy sessions. Musk's team worked tirelessly, following every lead, looking for cracks in the armor of the mysterious group known as the initiators. They dug into financial records, tracked the movements of Caldwell, and scrutinized every piece of data they could get their hands on. Slowly, but surely, they began to uncover a web of connections that spanned continents. But even as they made progress, the danger escalated. Musk's phone began to ring off the hook with calls from media outlets asking about the recent court case. The public was becoming more aware of the mysterious agent who had disrupted the trial, and rumors were starting to swirl. Musk had always been a master of managing his public image, but this was different. The press wasn't just interested in his companies. They were asking questions about his personal life, about his connections to powerful figures, and about what he really knew about the initiators. The walls were closing in. Musk had always believed that truth had a way of winning out in the end, but now, he wasn't so sure. The deeper he dug, the more he realized that the truth was something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. And if he wasn't careful, it could cost him everything. Late one night, Musk sat alone in his office, his face illuminated by the glow of the computer screen. The reports were piling up on his desk, each one more disturbing than the last. As he scanned through the documents, one name jumped out at him, Dr. Xavier Hartfield. The name was familiar, though Musk couldn't immediately place where he had heard it before. He clicked on the file, his eyes widening as he read through the contents. Dr. Hartfield was a leading scientist in the field of artificial intelligence, and he had been involved in several high-profile projects. But what struck Musk was the connection between Hartfield and several key players in the initiators. It seemed that Dr. Hartfield had been working with some of the world's most powerful people, helping to shape the direction of AI research. But what was his role in all of this? And what did he have to do with Musk? Just then, Calloway's voice crackled over the intercom, snapping Musk out of his thoughts. "Elon, we've got a breakthrough." Musk stood up, his heart racing. "What is it?" "We've traced Caldwell's connections back to Dr. Xavier Hartfield," Calloway said. "It looks like he's been the mastermind behind some of the initiatives we've been investigating. Hartfield is the one pulling the strings, and Caldwell's just his messenger." Musk felt a chill run down his spine. "Dr. Hartfield," he muttered. "He's been right under our noses this whole time." "We need to move fast," Calloway warned. "If he's the one controlling this entire operation, we need to take him out of the equation before it's too late." Musk nodded, determination in his eyes. The walls were closing in, but he wasn't going to back down now. The fight was just beginning. The walls were closing in, and Elon Musk could feel the pressure mounting with every passing hour. He had always prided himself on staying ahead of the game, anticipating problems before they even surfaced. But this was different. The enemy wasn't some faceless corporate competitor or an underdog startup trying to challenge Tesla's dominance. No, the threat Musk faced now was far more insidious, lurking in the shadows, manipulating events behind the scenes. Dr. Xavier Hartfield. The name echoed in Musk's mind like a warning bell. He had worked with the brightest minds in AI, led cutting-edge projects that could change the world. But as Musk delved deeper into Hartfield's background, he realized that this was no ordinary scientist. Hartfield wasn't just advancing technology. He was shaping the future according to someone else's vision, someone who had plans that Musk didn't fully understand yet. As the investigation into Hartfield's connections grew more intense, Musk found himself grappling with a sinking feeling in his gut. He had always believed that technological progress should be guided by a sense of responsibility, that the future of humanity was worth fighting for. But if Hartfield was working with the initiators, if he was pulling strings at the highest levels, that vision was in jeopardy. Musk sat in his office, staring at the reports on his desk, unable to focus. The file on Hartfield was open in front of him, and the connections were undeniable. Hartfield had been in contact with Caldwell, and Caldwell had been directly involved in the court case that had turned everything upside down. But what Musk couldn't understand was why. What did Hartfield and the initiators want from him? Why had they targeted him specifically? The answer seemed elusive, and that only deepened Musk's sense of urgency. If the initiators wanted control over his companies, they could take them. Tesla and SpaceX were powerful, but they weren't untouchable. But if what they wanted wasn't just power, but something much more fundamental, something that threatened the very direction humanity was heading, then Musk had to act, and fast. The next morning, Gwynne Shotwell, Callaway, and a few of Musk's closest advisors gathered in a secure meeting room. The mood was tense. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the air, and every word spoken felt like a carefully considered move in a much larger game. "We've uncovered something," Gwynne began, her voice low but firm. "Hartfield isn't just involved with the initiators. He's been collaborating with some of the most powerful people in the world. Financial magnates, intelligence agencies, even government officials, people who hold the reins of the global economy." Musk frowned. "Why me? Why target Tesla and SpaceX? What do they want?" "I think we're looking at something bigger than just a power grab," Callaway interjected. "This isn't about taking over companies. It's about controlling the future. The initiators believe that humanity is on the verge of a technological revolution, one that they can't control unless they get ahead of it." Musk's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying they want to control progress itself?" "Exactly," Callaway said. "They don't just want to influence industries. They want to steer the course of human evolution. Mars, AI, renewable energy, all of it is part of the same picture. The initiators are positioning themselves to decide what humanity becomes in the next century. They can't afford for you to succeed, Elon. Not if they're not the ones leading the charge." Musk leaned back in his chair, absorbing the gravity of the situation. "So, they think they're the gatekeepers of the future. But why go after me? I've always believed in pushing humanity forward, just like they do. Why stop me now?" Gwynne looked at Musk, her eyes sharp. "Because they see you as a threat. You're not just a businessman. You're a visionary, someone who could push humanity in a direction they can't control. If you succeed, you could change everything: energy, transportation, space exploration. And they'll be left behind." Musk stood up, pacing the room. "I've been fighting for the future for years. I've put everything into this. I've risked it all: my reputation, my companies, my time. I won't let anyone hijack it." Gwynne's voice softened. "We know, Elon, but you can't do this alone. This isn't just about beating them at their own game. We need to understand them. We need to figure out who's really pulling the strings and what they're after. We need to know what Hartfield is planning next." The room fell silent as everyone processed the enormity of the situation. Musk knew Gwynne was right. The stakes were higher than ever, and the road ahead would be fraught with peril. But he wasn't one to back down from a challenge. He had always believed that when the odds were stacked against you, that's when you found out what you were truly capable of. "I'm not backing down," Musk said, his voice steady with determination. "We go after them, full throttle. We expose Hartfield, expose the initiators, and we make sure they never have the chance to control the future again." The plan to take down the initiators was set in motion. Musk knew that in order to outmaneuver such a powerful and secretive group, he would need to play their game, but on his terms. It was time to stop reacting and start acting. He tasked Callaway with assembling a team of the best cybersecurity experts and investigators. They would dig into Hartfield's digital footprint, uncover any communication he had with the initiators, and find out exactly what kind of leverage he had over key figures in government and business. Musk also knew that he would need to bring in people from outside his circle, those with expertise in areas he hadn't considered, people who could give him an edge he didn't have before. But even as they began the process of gathering information, Musk couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. It was like a constant pressure on his chest, a feeling that every move he made was being anticipated by someone who was always one step ahead. Days passed in a blur of activity, but it wasn't until one late evening that they got their first real breakthrough. Callaway had managed to infiltrate one of the private communications networks used by the initiators, and he'd uncovered a message that could change everything. The message was brief, cryptic, but it was a lead that Musk could work with. It was a set of coordinates, a meeting location. "I'll go," Musk said, his voice firm. "We have to take the fight to them." "No," Callaway said quickly. It's too dangerous. They're not going to make it easy. I don't care, Musk replied. I'll go alone if I have to. But this ends now. Musk's resolve was unshakable. The enemy had played their cards, but now it was his turn. As Musk prepared to leave, a strange feeling washed over him. He knew this was just the beginning. Whatever awaited him at the meeting location, it would be the first step in a confrontation that could change everything. But Musk wasn't afraid. If anything, the fear had driven him to this point. He would face whatever came next head-on. He had come this far, and he wasn't about to stop now. The journey to the meeting location felt like a dream, or perhaps more accurately, like a nightmare. Musk's Tesla silently cut through the night, the soft hum of the electric engine the only sound inside the car. The city lights blurred in his peripheral vision as the miles ticked by. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, an invisible presence that lingered at the edges of his thoughts. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, but all he saw was the empty road behind him. Even with the weight of the investigation, the tension from the recent breakthroughs, and the looming threat of the initiators, Musk couldn't help but think about what he was doing. His purpose was clear: stop the initiators from taking control of the future, protect his companies, and ensure that humanity's progress wasn't dictated by a hidden cabal. But as the hours stretched on, he began to wonder, what was he really up against? Who was really in charge of this conspiracy? The coordinates Calloway had found were for a remote location outside the city, an old industrial warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was a perfect place for an untraceable meeting, isolated, abandoned, and out of sight from prying eyes. Musk had never been one to shy away from danger, but tonight felt different. There was no certainty in this confrontation. For the first time in a long while, the odds didn't seem to favor him. Musk pulled up to the warehouse and parked his Tesla a few hundred feet from the entrance. He turned off the engine, the car's quiet hum fading away as he stepped into the night air. A faint breeze stirred the dust on the cracked pavement, and the silence felt suffocating. He wasn't sure what he expected to find here. Maybe he thought it would be a trap, with figures emerging from the shadows to ambush him. Or maybe it was an opportunity. An opening where he could finally confront the people behind the initiators and take control of the situation once and for all. But as he walked toward the entrance of the warehouse, his phone vibrated in his pocket, breaking the stillness. Musk pulled it out and glanced at the screen. It was a message from Gwen. Be careful, Elon. We've traced some irregular movements around the location. Something's not right. Musk's heart skipped a beat. The unease that had been gnawing at him suddenly felt more real. The initiators were playing a much deeper game than he had anticipated. He typed a quick reply. I'm here. I'll be cautious. The warehouse door was slightly ajar, creaking as he pushed it open. Inside, the air was musty, filled with the scent of old machinery and rust. Dim, flickering lights illuminated the vast interior. Musk stepped inside, his shoes clicking against the concrete floor. The shadows stretched long, and the place felt abandoned, except for the faint sound of footsteps. Elon Musk, a voice echoed from the dark corner. Musk tensed, instinctively reaching for the small concealed device at his side. The voice wasn't unfamiliar, though it sent a chill through him. It was Caldwell's voice, the government agent he had first encountered in the courtroom. Musk's eyes narrowed as Caldwell stepped out from the shadows, his usual calm demeanor replaced by something colder. A smirk tugged at the corners of Caldwell's lips as he approached. You're braver than I gave you credit for, Caldwell said, his voice low. But you're also foolish. You're walking into the lion's den, and you have no idea what's waiting for you. Musk didn't flinch. I know exactly what I'm doing. The initiators have been pulling the strings for far too long. You think you can control the future, but you're wrong. I'm going to stop you, Caldwell. Caldwell's smile faded, replaced by a more serious expression. It's not about control, Elon. It's about survival. Humanity is heading toward a precipice, and we're trying to ensure we don't fall off the edge. You've seen the data. The future is uncertain, and the technology you're developing, the paths you're walking down. Those paths could be catastrophic. We're doing this for the greater good. Musk took a step forward, his eyes locked on Caldwell's. You're not protecting anyone. You're manipulating them. You're creating a future where only a select few have control. That's not survival. That's tyranny. Caldwell's gaze hardened. And you think you're any different? You think that if you succeed, it'll be any better? You may have good intentions, Elon, but the truth is, you're out of your depth. You're playing a game with rules you don't understand, and you're going to lose. Before Musk could respond, a sudden movement caught his attention. From the far corner of the warehouse, a figure stepped into the dim light. Musk's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the person. Dr. Xavier Hartfield. Hartfield walked toward them, his face expressionless. Unlike Caldwell, who wore a confident smile, Hartfield's eyes were cold, calculating. Musk couldn't quite read him, but there was something unnerving about the way Hartfield moved. "I'm glad you could make it, Mr. Musk," Hartfield said, his voice smooth but tinged with something darker. "I've been looking forward to this conversation." Musk's gaze flicked between Hartfield and Caldwell. "This is your plan, isn't it? You've been pulling the strings behind the scenes, manipulating everything, from Tesla to SpaceX, trying to get me to play along with your agenda." Hartfield didn't deny it. Instead, he nodded, his expression still unreadable. "It's not about playing along, Elon. It's about shaping the future. The world is changing, faster than you or anyone else can comprehend. You're not the only one who sees it, but you are the only one standing in the way of true progress. You're making the same mistake all great innovators make, believing that you can control the chaos." Musk's mind was racing. "What do you want, Hartfield? Why all this? What is it that you're really after?" Hartfield took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "What we want, Musk, is a world where we decide the course. A world where we ensure that humanity doesn't destroy itself with its own creations. You've been a part of that creation, but now you need to realize that you're out of time." Musk could feel the tension rising in the room, the threat hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Caldwell stepped forward, his hand casually resting on his side, where Musk knew he was armed. "Are you ready to make a choice, Elon?" Caldwell's voice was measured, dangerous. "The future is at a crossroads. Join us, and you can be a part of something that will last. Fight us, and you'll be consumed by forces you can't even begin to understand." Musk stood still, his mind racing. Every fiber of his being screamed that this was it, the pivotal moment where everything would change. He could join them, be a part of their vision, or he could take a stand and risk everything. "Your future isn't my future," Musk said, his voice firm, "and I'll never let you control it." Hartfield and Caldwell exchanged a brief glance, the tension crackling between them. "We'll see about that," Caldwell said softly, his voice cold and calculating. The room seemed to shrink, the weight of the moment pressing down on Musk. The pieces were falling into place. But there was one thing he knew for sure. He couldn't let these men, or their vision, shape the world. Not like this. The fight wasn't over yet. It had only just begun. The stillness of the warehouse was broken by the harsh sound of a distant door slamming shut. Musk stood frozen, his mind racing, his heart thudding in his chest. Every instinct told him to move, to act before this confrontation turned any more dangerous. Caldwell's cold eyes never left his face, and Hartfield's expression was unreadable as always. But there was an air of finality about them, a certainty that sent a ripple of unease through Musk's core. It felt like the walls were closing in on him. Musk's hand instinctively went to his jacket pocket, where he had concealed a small, portable transmitter. He had made sure Calloway knew his exact location and had set up a backup plan. He was not here alone, not truly. Calloway had eyes on the location from a distance, and security was on standby. But even so, the feeling of being caught in the game was overpowering. "You don't get it, do you?" Caldwell's voice sliced through the tension. "This isn't just about you, Elon. This is about saving humanity from itself. From people like you. You've spent your whole career building things that could either save us or destroy us. And you can't even see that. You don't know what it takes to protect this planet. To protect the future." Musk's jaw tightened. He knew that if he engaged in a philosophical battle with Caldwell, he would be playing right into his hands. This wasn't about saving humanity in any true sense. It was about control, about making the future bend to their will. They had already determined who had the right to lead. They just hadn't expected Musk to challenge them. "You're wrong," Musk said, voice steady but tinged with frustration. "It's not about control. It's about giving humanity the tools to choose its own path. You don't get to decide who leads. We don't need your permission to advance. We don't need your approval." Hartfield, who had been eerily silent, took a step forward. His movements were deliberate, calculated, as though he had already anticipated every word Musk had just spoken. "It's not about your choice, Elon." Hartfield's voice was soft but piercing. "You've made your choice. You chose to fight for a world of uncertainty, a world where the reckless can control the future just as easily as the wise. We can't allow that. The future is too important, and the stakes are too high." Musk's eyes locked with Hartfield's, feeling the weight of his words. For a moment, he was forced to question himself. Was he really the reckless one? Had he overlooked something crucial in his pursuit of innovation? But the doubt was fleeting. He knew his mission was different. The future didn't belong to the few who claimed the power to shape it. It belonged to all of humanity. "You don't get to decide who's wise and who's reckless," Musk said with resolve. "The people who can shape the future are the ones who believe in it. I've worked too hard, taken too many risks, and seen too much to back down now. This ends with us exposing your true motives, not with me joining your cause." Caldwell's eyes hardened. "You don't understand, do you, Musk? We're not asking for your cooperation. We're giving you one last chance to join us willingly. You don't want to be our enemy." For a long moment, the three men stood there, the air thick with tension. Musk's mind raced as he weighed his options. Every word Caldwell and Hartfield had spoken hinted at something darker. They weren't merely protecting humanity from itself. They were deciding who had the right to survive, to thrive, and to lead. As much as Musk wanted to take action, to strike first and finish this once and for all, he knew that rushing in without the full picture could be fatal. He had to play it smart. The world was watching, and he wasn't about to make a mistake that would give them leverage. "What exactly are you offering?" Musk asked, his voice steady, but his mind calculating. "I'm guessing it's not a place at your table." Hartfield's lips twitched into a smile. "I suppose you could say we're offering something bigger than that, Musk. You've spent your life dreaming of Mars. You've imagined what it would take to build a society out there, a place where humanity could start fresh, free from the mistakes of Earth. But you haven't seen the full picture, the bigger scope of what it will take to truly leave this planet behind." Musk's pulse quickened. "You're saying you can guarantee humanity's survival?" "In a way," Hartfield responded cryptically. "We've figured out how to ensure the right people make it off Earth, Elon. We know what technologies, what resources will make it possible. We're not simply launching rockets. We're determining who will be part of the future, who will be the leaders, who will survive." Caldwell leaned in slightly. "The truth is, Elon, we've already made the decision. The only thing left is whether or not you'll be a part of it." Musk felt a shiver run down his spine. It was a terrifying thought, having someone decide not just who had power, but who got to survive. They weren't just looking for control of the world. They were taking humanity's future and locking it into a predetermined path. And Musk wasn't going to let that happen. "You think you can decide who gets to live and who doesn't?" Musk's voice was growing colder, his anger rising. "You're wrong. The future belongs to everyone. It's not up to a few people in a shadowy organization to decide who's worthy of it. That's not progress, that's oppression." Caldwell's expression flickered with irritation. "You're making a mistake, but we're giving you the chance to rethink it. You can join us, Elon, or you can fight us. But if you choose the latter, there will be no turning back." The room seemed to shrink even further as Musk took in the weight of those words. The threat was clear now. The initiators weren't just playing games. They were willing to destroy anyone who stood in their way, and Musk knew they had the resources and influence to do just that. But he had a choice. He could either accept their offer and join their ranks, or he could expose them for who they really were. In that moment, Musk realized what he had to do. "You're wrong," Musk said finally, his voice low and unwavering. "This isn't about survival. This is about control. And I'll never let anyone take control of humanity's future." With those words, he turned and made for the door. He didn't need to hear anything more. There was no negotiation. No compromise. He wasn't going to play their game. As he stepped out into the cold night air, Musk's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a simple text from Gwyn. "We're in position. We're ready to move." Musk's heart raced. The game wasn't over. This was just the beginning. He glanced over his shoulder at the warehouse, where Caldwell and Hartfield were still inside, waiting for him to make his decision. But Musk had already made his. He was no longer a player in their game. He was going to win. Musk's footsteps echoed through the cold night air as he made his way toward the Tesla, parked a few hundred feet away. His thoughts were running a mile a minute, each step away from the warehouse an affirmation of his decision. The tension from inside the building was still heavy on his chest, like a weight he couldn't shake off. The initiators had made their move, and now it was his turn. As he slid into the driver's seat of his Tesla, his fingers brushed against the smooth surface of the steering wheel, grounding him in the moment. The hum of the car's engine brought him a strange sense of calm. He knew what was at stake now more than ever. The world was at a crossroads, and it wasn't just about Mars anymore. It was about humanity's future, about freedom, and about preventing the control of a few from dictating the destiny of the many. He quickly tapped the screen in front of him, activating the vehicle's AI. "Route to headquarters," Musk instructed, his voice steady. The car's autopilot engaged, and it smoothly began its journey back to a secure location. His phone buzzed again. It was from Calloway. "Everything's in place. You've made the right call. We've got eyes on the next move. You need to be ready." Musk leaned back in his seat, glancing out the window at the streets of the city blurring past. He knew Calloway was right. This wasn't just about evading the initiators. It was about going on the offensive. The world needed to see who was really pulling the strings. The decision he'd made moments ago was a turning point. There was no going back. Caldwell and Hartfield had underestimated him, but Musk had always been a step ahead. He had the resources, the network, and the willpower to dismantle their operation. All he needed now was the right moment and the right allies. His thoughts were interrupted as the car slowed, nearing a quiet industrial park on the outskirts of the city. A hidden compound, far from prying eyes, awaited him. Inside, a small team of his most trusted engineers and strategists worked round the clock on data analysis and covert operations. They had been tracking the initiators for months, gathering intel, mapping out connections, and now, Musk was about to take everything they had learned and turn it against them. Musk arrived at the compound, stepping out of the car into the brisk night air. A few of his key operatives were waiting for him by the entrance. They nodded silently, their expressions a mixture of relief and determination. "You made it out clean?" one of them asked, a woman named Maria, who was head of his security team. Musk nodded, his face hardening with resolve. "I made it out, but they know we're onto them. They won't stop. Not now." Maria's expression darkened. "We've got everything ready on our end. We've encrypted the data we gathered from Caldwell and Hartfield's operation. But if we're going to expose them, we need to move fast. They've got resources in high places, Elon. You're playing a dangerous game." Musk gave her a reassuring look. "I'm aware of the risks. But we can't let them control the narrative any longer. They've been manipulating everything from behind the scenes, but it's time for the world to know the truth." The group entered the compound, where the air was thick with the low hum of computers and machinery working at full capacity. Musk's inner circle was already making the final preparations for what was to come. An unprecedented release of information, revealing the full scope of the initiators' plans. They had to be meticulous. One mistake could be catastrophic. He walked over to a large screen in the center of the room, where a map of global operations was displayed. Lines connected dots across continents, government figures, corporate leaders, shadow organizations, all woven together in a vast network. The initiators had infiltrated every level of society, from tech companies to military contractors and beyond. "We've mapped their operations," Maria said, her voice low. "Everything from their financial dealings to their covert meetings, their influence in political circles. We have it all." Musk nodded, his eyes scanning the screen. "And we're going to release it, but not until we have everything we need. We have to take them down in one fell swoop." "How do you plan on getting to them?" another voice asked from the back of the room. It was Derek, one of Musk's chief strategists. He had been quietly observing, waiting for the right moment to speak. Caldwell and Hartfield aren't just going to stand by and let you expose them. They'll come for you. Hard. Musk paused, considering his options. He had no doubt that Caldwell and Hartfield were already making moves to counter his every step. They were watching him, waiting for him to make a mistake. But Musk wasn't going to play into their hands. "We have a few tricks up our sleeves," Musk said, turning to Maria. "How close are we to cracking their internal communications?" Maria's fingers danced across a keyboard, bringing up encrypted files on a secondary screen. "We're almost there. We've already intercepted some of their communications, but it'll take a little more time to fully break through. Once we do, we'll have access to everything." Musk exhaled, his mind racing with the potential implications. The data they had gathered was only the beginning. What they needed now was leverage, something that would make the initiators see they couldn't outmaneuver him. He had to turn the tables, make the first move, and force their hand. "We don't have time to wait for everything to fall into place," Musk said. "We need to act now. We'll release the first wave of information, just enough to shake them. We'll expose their financial dealings, their key players, and their covert operations. Then we'll be ready for their response. But we'll control the narrative." Derek raised an eyebrow. "And how do we make sure they don't shut it down before it gets out?" Musk's lips curved into a faint smile. "That's where our backup plan comes in." A soft beeping interrupted their conversation. Maria looked up at the screen, her eyes widening. "We've got an incoming transmission. It's encrypted, but it's coming from a secure government channel." Musk's pulse quickened. This was it. The initiators were about to make their move, and he had to be ready. "Put it through," he ordered. The large screen flickered, and then a face appeared. It was Caldwell. "Elon," Caldwell said, his voice icy, "you've made a grave mistake." Musk's heart skipped a beat, but his voice remained calm. "I don't think so, Caldwell. I think the real mistake is trying to control the future. You'll find that the world doesn't belong to a few select people in the shadows. The world belongs to everyone." Caldwell's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't a friendly one. "You're playing with fire, Musk. You won't get away with this." Musk leaned in, his eyes hard. "We'll see about that." The screen went black. The game was on. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Musk stared at the blank screen where Caldwell's face had been just moments ago. The air in the room had shifted, thick with anticipation. His team was silent, eyes trained on the empty monitor, waiting for some sign of the next move. They were in uncharted territory now, and the weight of the impending confrontation loomed large. Maria stepped forward, breaking the silence. "That's a direct challenge, Elon. Caldwell won't just sit back and let you go public with everything. He's got more power than you can imagine, and if he thinks you're pushing back against him, he'll do whatever it takes to shut you down." Musk nodded, his mind calculating the implications. He doesn't realize who he's dealing with. He thinks he has the upper hand, but this game is just beginning. We need to be smarter than him, anticipate his every move. Derek, who had been quietly observing, now spoke up. "You're right, but we can't just rely on exposing his network. He has enough resources to wipe everything out before it hits the public. We need to move fast and hit them where it hurts, something that they can't just erase in an instant." Musk thought for a moment, then turned to Maria. "How are we on the backup plan?" Maria glanced at the screen, then back at Musk. "It's almost ready. We have a safe house set up with redundant servers and proxy systems. The moment we start releasing information, we'll need to activate it. The last thing we want is for Caldwell and his people to track us down before the job's done." "Good," Musk said, his voice steady. "Let's do it. But we need to be prepared for their response. They'll try to control the narrative, and they'll have the means to do so. We need to make sure our plan is airtight. No room for error." He took a deep breath, turning to the group. "The first round of leaks goes out tonight. We'll release just enough to show the world the scope of the initiator's operation. How far they've infiltrated governments, corporations, tech giants, everything. But we won't give them everything. We'll save the real bombshells for when they least expect it." Derek nodded, his face serious. "It's risky, but it's the only way to make sure they can't just sweep it under the rug. Musk looked around at his team, his closest allies. He knew they had all sacrificed a lot to get here. Family, friends, careers, and now, it was all riding on this moment. He had pushed them all to the brink, but they hadn't wavered. The path ahead was uncertain, but they were in this together. The clock on the wall ticked quietly, each second passing like a drumbeat, reminding them that time was running out. Musk stepped over to a nearby table, where several monitors displayed real-time data feeds. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to pull the trigger. But before he could make a move, his phone buzzed again. It was an encrypted message from Callaway. They're already mobilizing. Caldwell's network is in motion. They've got people everywhere. But there's something else. Someone else is involved. Musk's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Who else? I'm not sure yet, but it's bigger than the initiators. I think we're dealing with something much more dangerous. Someone is pulling the strings behind Caldwell. Musk's gut twisted. This was not what he needed to hear. The weight of this revelation hit him like a wave, but he couldn't afford to panic. He had to stay focused. Keep digging, Musk replied, voice firm. Whatever this is, we need to know everything. I'll be in touch when the release starts. With that, Musk turned back to the team, a renewed sense of urgency driving him. We can't wait any longer. We're moving forward. Maria quickly adjusted the servers, running the final checks. Everything's ready to go, Elon. We've set up secure channels for the leaks. We'll start with the financial ties, the key figures, and their involvement with corrupt politicians. It'll be just enough to get the world talking, but not enough to reveal everything. Musk nodded, his fingers finally landing on the keyboard. Let's do it. As he hit the key to activate the first set of leaks, a rush of adrenaline surged through him. This was it, the moment when everything could either fall into place or shatter into chaos. There was no turning back. The data began flowing, spreading through encrypted channels to news outlets, social media, and underground forums. Musk watched as the first wave of information hit the digital airwaves, sending ripples of shock through the global community. The revelations began slowly. Whispers about high-level corruption, shadowy figures with ties to corporate giants, government insiders pulling the strings from behind the scenes. But the true power of the leak wasn't just in the information. It was in the questions it would raise. The questions that couldn't be ignored. But Musk wasn't blind to the danger. He knew Caldwell's response would come quickly, and it would be fierce. There was no way the man would let this stand without retaliating. Just as Musk sat back, watching the early reactions to the leaks, his phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Callaway. It was an anonymous number. He hesitated for a moment, then picked up. Elon, a calm voice said on the other end. You've made a grave mistake. It wasn't Caldwell. It wasn't Hartfield. The voice was unfamiliar, but the tone was menacing, the kind that sent a chill down Musk's spine. Who is this? Musk demanded, his grip tightening on the phone. The voice didn't answer immediately. Instead, it was followed by a soft chuckle, dark and full of menace. You've stepped into a bigger game than you realize, Musk. This isn't about Caldwell or Hartfield. You're playing with forces far beyond your understanding. Musk's heart raced. Whoever this was, they knew something he didn't. Who are you? What do you want? The voice grew colder. What I want doesn't matter. What matters is that you've just woken up something far more dangerous. If you think the initiators are your biggest threat, you're sadly mistaken. The line went dead. Musk stood there, the phone still pressed against his ear, his mind reeling. This was bigger than he had ever imagined. The stakes had just been raised. Musk stood frozen, the dead silence on the other end of the line ringing in his ears. The message was clear, though unsettling. The initiators weren't the only ones watching him. Whoever had called knew far more than they should have. Musk's mind spun as he thought through the implications. The revelation that this threat was bigger than Caldwell and Hartfield felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. If he didn't have enough to worry about before, now it was clear. He was standing at the precipice of something far more dangerous. His fingers tightened around the phone as the cool hum of the room surrounded him. Maria and Derek were still waiting, having picked up on the tension in his face as he hung up. Musk didn't need to say anything for them to understand something had just escalated. "What is it, Elon?" Maria asked, stepping forward, her tone low but urgent. Musk looked at the screen again, his fingers tapping nervously against the side of his phone. "That was someone else, someone I don't know. They warned me that I've triggered something much larger than the initiators." Derek leaned in, his face tight with concern. "Who was it? Did they identify themselves?" "No," Musk said, shaking his head. "They wouldn't even tell me who they were. Just said I was playing with forces I didn't understand, and that if I thought Caldwell was my biggest problem, I was dead wrong." Maria cursed softly, her eyes narrowing. "This isn't good. If someone that powerful is involved, we could be facing an enemy that's hidden in plain sight." Musk's gaze turned to the monitors, where the first wave of leaks was now live. His fingers hovered above the keyboard again, the decision on whether to release more information weighing heavily on him. This new threat made him question if it was the right time. But there was no time to second-guess. The world was already watching. The leaks had sent shockwaves across the digital world, and the momentum was only building. The global media was alive with speculation, digging into the financial ties and shadowy figures that had been exposed. Governments, corporations, and influential figures. There was no telling how many people were now looking over their shoulders. Musk clenched his jaw, steadying himself. "We keep going. This is only the beginning." Maria met his gaze, her eyes sharp. "I don't think we can keep going blindly. We need answers. Who was that person on the phone? What do they know? What have we stumbled into?" Musk's mind raced. He knew Maria was right. The situation was spinning faster than he could control. Whoever this mysterious figure was, they were part of something larger, something he didn't yet understand. And if they had the power to track him down so easily, he knew they had access to resources far beyond what he was used to dealing with. But in the end, there was no choice but to move forward. He had started something that couldn't be undone. The wheels were in motion, and Musk wasn't about to let fear or uncertainty stop him now. The truth was out there, and it had to be exposed. "Keep monitoring the leaks," Musk said, his voice hardening with resolve. "We have to stay ahead of them, but we can't stop. Not now. Let's keep pushing. Watch every response, track every ripple. We'll learn more about this shadowy figure soon enough. But we need to stay on top of Caldwell and Hartfield in the meantime." Derek nodded, already turning back to his workstation. "Understood. We'll keep an eye on everything, every angle. If this is someone else pulling the strings, we'll find out who they are." Maria stepped back into action, giving Musk a glance full of unspoken concern. "And if they come for us first?" Musk didn't hesitate. "Then we make sure they regret it." With that, the team shifted back into action, each person heading to their respective posts, their minds focused on the task at hand. The quiet hum of the computers and the soft click of keys was the only sound in the room as they worked, each one fully aware of the gravity of the situation. Outside, the night was growing colder, the city's skyline shimmering with the glow of neon lights. It was a stark contrast to the storm brewing within the walls of the compound. Hours passed in a blur. As the first leaks continued to spread, Musk found himself growing more restless. His team had managed to track multiple responses to the data, from anonymous whistleblowers trying to corroborate the leaks to high-level government officials scrambling to control the narrative. But in the midst of it all, Musk couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, a storm he couldn't predict. Then, as the early hours of the morning approached, it came. A message pinged on his encrypted device. It was short, direct, and sent from an unknown number. "Stop now. This is your final warning." Musk's heart skipped a beat. The message was from the same mysterious voice, the one that had warned him earlier. The tone was colder now, more urgent, but it left no room for ambiguity. They were not going to let him continue. Maria glanced over Musk's shoulder as he read the message, her eyes hardening. "This is escalating faster than I thought. Whoever's behind this doesn't want us getting any further. They're playing for keeps." Musk's grip on his device tightened. "We can't stop now. This is what they want. They're trying to intimidate us. If we stop, they win." "But how do we know what's really at stake?" Derek asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "Whoever this is, they have the power to wipe out everything we've worked for. What if we're not prepared for what's coming? Musk locked eyes with Derek, his voice unwavering. Then we make sure we're ready. We've come this far, and I'm not turning back now. We've exposed the truth, and that's a force in itself. As the message disappeared from the screen, Musk felt a deep, unnerving sense of foreboding. The game had changed. He wasn't just up against Caldwell or Hartfield anymore. The shadowy figure on the other end of the line was just the beginning of something far more sinister, and Musk realized, for the first time, that the stakes were much higher than he'd ever imagined. He turned back to the team. We keep going, but we need to be ready for whatever comes next. They're coming for us, and it's not just Caldwell we need to worry about anymore. The first wave of information had ignited a firestorm, and now, the real battle was about to begin. The air in the room had grown tense again. Each passing minute felt like a countdown, and Musk's thoughts raced like a storm. The encrypted message was still fresh in his mind, its warning echoing with an ominous weight that hung over them all. They had crossed a line, and now the forces behind Caldwell and this new, unknown threat were coming for them. Musk sat at the edge of the table, his fingers drumming impatiently. He couldn't afford to let panic consume him. His mind was racing to formulate a plan, but every option seemed fraught with risk. The last thing he needed was to make a misstep now that they had reached this critical juncture. Maria paced the room, her eyes darting between the monitors as the response to their leaks continued to spread. There were already signs that Caldwell's network was mobilizing. Social media platforms were filled with half-baked theories, some calling the leaks a conspiracy, others speculating about the true nature of the shadowy figures behind the scenes. But nothing had really gained traction yet, and that was both a blessing and a curse. It meant they still had time, but it also meant that someone out there, someone with a great deal of power, was preparing to act. Musk turned to Derek, who was hunched over his laptop, scanning through data streams. Any new developments on the response? Is Caldwell making a move? Derek's fingers flew across the keyboard, his brow furrowed in concentration. Not yet, but I'm seeing some strange activity. I'm tracking encrypted communications moving between high-level operatives. These aren't just people from Caldwell's network. They're too organized, like a different arm of a larger operation. And it's moving fast. Musk's pulse quickened. That's the same kind of movement I've been seeing. Whoever's behind this doesn't want us digging any deeper. Maria stopped pacing and turned to face Musk. If they're trying to shut us down, they must have a plan. We need to anticipate their next move before they get to us first. Musk nodded, rising from the table. He walked over to the whiteboard in the corner, where they had been tracking the various threads of the conspiracy. Names, organizations, connections, all linked by the web they had started to unravel. The deeper they went, the more tangled it became. It was clear now that the initiators were only one piece of the puzzle, and this larger, more dangerous force was pulling all the strings. We need to go on the offensive, Musk said, his voice sharp. This is our window. We can't wait around for them to come for us. We have to take the fight to them. Maria and Derek exchanged glances. They knew what that meant. Whatever Musk was planning, it was going to put them in the crosshairs of even more danger. You're sure about this? Derek asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. We don't know who we're really dealing with here, and if we push too hard, we could expose ourselves before we're ready. Musk's gaze was unwavering. The longer we wait, the more ground they gain. We can't just sit here and hope we're not the next target. We need leverage. We need to disrupt them before they disrupt us. Maria's expression darkened. So, what? We go public with everything? Expose their entire operation? No, Musk replied. Not yet. We don't have the full picture, and giving everything away could be a mistake. But we do have pieces that can create chaos in their ranks. We need to hit them where they're weakest. Derek leaned back in his chair, considering Musk's words. You're talking about causing a rift in their operations. If we do that, we might be able to disrupt their plans, at least for a while. Musk smiled grimly. Exactly. We find the chinks in their armor, and we exploit them. I want to know who's behind Caldwell, who's controlling all these moving parts. And we need to expose their vulnerabilities. Maria nodded, her expression determined. Okay, I'll start pulling together everything we've gathered so far. If we can hack into their comms, maybe we can track their internal messages. That might give us the intel we need." Musk looked at her and nodded. "Do it. We need to stay one step ahead, no matter what." The plan was set into motion. As Maria began working on the next phase of their operation, Musk and Derek continued to sift through the data they had collected. Every moment felt like a race against time. The more they uncovered, the more they realized just how deep the rabbit hole went. Hours passed, the tension in the room mounting as Maria worked tirelessly on cracking into Caldwell's encrypted communications. Derek kept a close eye on the real-time data, watching for any signs of an imminent counterattack. Musk's thoughts lingered on the voice from earlier, the one that had warned him. The person who had called was more than just a shadow in the darkness. They were someone who knew exactly what Musk was capable of, and they were determined to stop him. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Then, just as the first light of dawn began to break through the windows, Maria turned to him, her face pale but determined. "I've got something." Musk immediately crossed the room. "What did you find?" Maria's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up encrypted messages from a private network that had been siphoned from Caldwell's operation. "This," she said, pointing to a series of messages between high-ranking members of the network. "They're talking about you, Elon." Musk leaned in, reading the messages over Maria's shoulder. His eyes narrowed as he processed the contents. Musk is a problem. He's getting too close to the truth. We need to neutralize him before the leaks cause more damage. I'll make sure the operation stays under control. Get the others in place. Musk's pulse raced as he read the words. Caldwell wasn't just after him. He was after everything Musk had built. But the most chilling part was the last message. "Prepare the agent. We need him to take care of this personally." Maria looked up at Musk. "Who's the agent?" Musk's stomach sank. He didn't know, but he knew this was bad, very bad. They were getting too close. Whoever this agent was, they weren't going to be an easy target. They were trained, powerful, and they had been sent for a reason. To stop Musk at all costs. It was no longer just about exposing Caldwell or bringing down the initiators. Now, it was about survival. And with that, Musk knew. The storm was about to hit. The air in the command center felt thicker now. The sense of urgency was palpable, pressing down on everyone like an invisible weight. The discovery Maria had made, those chilling messages that clearly signaled a coordinated effort to stop Musk, had changed everything. This wasn't just about corporate espionage anymore. It was about survival, and Musk had just realized that he was up against forces far more powerful than he could have anticipated. Musk paced back and forth, his mind working in overdrive. They had made too many enemies in too little time. Caldwell was bad enough, but whoever was behind him, the mysterious agent, was something else entirely. The threat was no longer distant, something abstract that they could only prepare for. The agent was coming, and it was only a matter of time before they made their move. Maria was still hunched over her laptop, scanning through the communications they had intercepted. Derek had his head buried in another set of data streams, looking for anything that might give them a way to track the agent before it was too late. Musk stopped, staring at the digital map they had been using to monitor Caldwell's movements. They had no idea where the agent might be coming from. They had no intel on him, no way to predict what he might do next. "Anything?" Musk's voice was sharp, his impatience starting to show. Maria looked up briefly, her eyes tired but determined. "I've got a partial location on one of the comms. It's not much, but it's a lead." She clicked a few more keys, bringing up a map that pinpointed a small, nondescript building in the outskirts of the city. This is where the last message came from. It could be connected to the agent. Derek leaned over, glancing at the screen. "That's deep in the industrial district. It's a ghost town out there. No one would even notice if someone went missing." Musk felt his stomach tighten. The agent had to be close. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. If they didn't act quickly, they could lose the element of surprise, and with it, their one chance at taking down Caldwell and the shadowy forces controlling him. "All right," Musk said, his voice cool but filled with steely resolve. "We're going after them." Maria nodded, already pulling up a set of blueprints for the building. "We'll need to move fast, though. If we're wrong and this is just a dead end, we've just wasted a lot of time. Musk didn't hesitate. We don't have the luxury of waiting. We're in this deep now. If the agent is there, we can't let them get any closer. The team sprang into action, grabbing their gear, preparing for the most dangerous operation they'd undertaken yet. Musk could feel the weight of the moment pressing in on him. It wasn't just about the leaks anymore. It wasn't about exposing the truth. Now, it was personal. Someone was coming for him, and he wasn't going to sit idly by. The three of them headed out of the command center, making their way to the waiting vehicles. The streets outside were unusually quiet, the kind of stillness that made the air feel heavy, like the calm before a storm. As they drove toward the industrial district, Musk's thoughts kept returning to the agent. Who were they? What were they capable of? And how far would they go to stop him? They arrived at the location just as the first hints of dawn began to break across the sky. The building in question looked as unremarkable as any of the other warehouses scattered across the area. No signs of life. No security. It was almost too easy. Musk felt a chill run down his spine. Maria was already at the front of the building, checking the layout. "There's a back entrance," she whispered. "It's covered by a thick set of trees. We can slip in quietly." Musk nodded. "Let's do it." The team moved swiftly, their footsteps light but deliberate, as they approached the back of the building. Musk's heart raced with each step. This was the moment they had been preparing for, but there was no room for error. If the agent was inside, they needed to catch them off guard. No mistakes. As they reached the back door, Derek pulled out a set of tools, working quickly to disable the security system. They had to be careful. If they tripped an alarm, it could alert whoever was inside. The seconds felt like hours as the quiet click of the door unlocking reverberated in Musk's ears. They slipped inside, and the darkness enveloped them. The building was eerily silent. The air smelled musty, thick with dust and neglect. The only sound was the soft shuffle of their boots against the concrete floor. Musk's instincts were on high alert. He could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something wasn't right. They moved through the dimly lit corridors, checking every room they passed. It was clear the building had been abandoned for years, until now. Every step took them deeper into the heart of the facility, but there were no signs of life. No movement. No one to be found. But then, just as Musk was about to give the signal to regroup, a faint sound broke the silence. It was a voice. Low, almost a whisper. But it was enough to make Musk freeze in place. Elon Musk. The voice was chilling. Even in the stillness, it carried an eerie weight. Musk's breath caught in his throat. He wasn't alone. A figure stepped out of the shadows, moving with a confidence that sent a wave of unease through Musk's entire body. The man was tall, dressed in dark tactical gear, his face obscured by a mask. He moved with an unnatural precision, his eyes locking onto Musk immediately. "Did you really think you could expose what's been hidden for so long?" the figure said, his voice muffled but still cutting through the silence. "You're playing a dangerous game, Mr. Musk." Musk's heart skipped a beat. This was the agent, the one who had been sent to stop him, the one who would do whatever it took to shut them down. He took a step forward, his voice steady but filled with anger. "I'm not backing down. You can try to stop me, but it won't work. The truth is out there, and nothing you do can change that." The agent's lips curled into a faint smile, a terrifying expression that didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see about that." Before Musk could react, the agent lunged, fast and silent. The fight was on. The agent's speed was unlike anything Musk had anticipated. He moved with a fluidity that defied his bulky gear, his actions precise, almost predatory. Musk barely had time to react as the figure closed the distance between them in a flash. A quick sidestep was all he managed before the agent's gloved hand reached out, attempting to seize him by the collar. "Stay back," Derek shouted, pulling out a small tactical stun gun from his jacket. His finger pressed against the trigger, sending a pulse of electricity at the agent. But the figure was already too fast, ducking to the side, the stun blast missing by mere inches. Musk's heart raced as he grabbed for the edge of a metal crate to steady himself, his mind scrambling to find a way out. They had been prepared for a lot of things, but this wasn't just about gathering intel anymore. This was a fight for their lives. The agent's face remained hidden behind a mask, his eyes cold and calculating as he watched Musk and his team. You think you're the first to try and dismantle what's been built? The voice was deeper now, laced with a quiet menace. You've exposed one piece of the puzzle, but you're too late to stop it. Musk clenched his fists, taking a defensive stance. He'd faced many challenges, but this was different. Whoever this agent was, they weren't just a hired gun. They were part of something bigger, something that had been in the shadows for much longer than he had realized. "We're not backing down," Musk said through gritted teeth. "We're exposing everything. You can't stop us." The agent didn't flinch. Instead, he moved with terrifying precision, his hand shooting forward, a sleek black blade flashing in the low light of the warehouse. Musk barely managed to dodge, his heart pounding in his chest. Derek moved in, trying again to incapacitate the agent with another stun shot, but the figure was already gone, reappearing in a different part of the room, moving like smoke in the darkness. Maria, who had been silently assessing the situation, grabbed Musk's arm, pulling him toward a nearby stack of crates. "We need to get out of here," she urged, her voice sharp with fear. "This is a trap. We're not prepared for this." But Musk couldn't back down. They had come this far. He wasn't about to let this person, or whoever was pulling the strings, win. "We need to figure out who's behind all of this," he said, his voice firm. "If we leave now, we'll never get another shot." Derek, still watching the agent's every movement, nodded. "He's not just a soldier, Musk. He's part of something bigger. We've got to expose him, somehow." The agent's eyes narrowed as he continued to circle them, a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. "You really think you're the ones in control here? You're just pawns, Musk. You've been played from the beginning." Musk's stomach sank. The agent wasn't just trying to stop them. He was trying to break them, psychologically and physically. He needed to stay calm, think through this. They weren't going to win if they let fear control them. In a sudden motion, the agent lunged at Musk again, his blade slashing through the air. Musk instinctively ducked, narrowly avoiding the lethal arc, and rolled to the side, reaching for a nearby piece of debris, a large steel pipe. He picked it up just in time to block another strike, the blade scraping against the metal with a shrill, bone-rattling sound. "Stay down," Maria shouted at Derek, who had rushed to help Musk, only to find himself nearly getting hit by the agent's blade as well. Musk swung the steel pipe with all his might, connecting with the agent's arm. The impact was brutal, but the agent didn't so much as flinch. Instead, he shifted his position, now moving in for the final blow. "Get down," Maria shouted, pulling out a handgun from the back of her waistband, aiming carefully at the agent. The shot rang out, but the agent was already moving, dodging effortlessly. Musk's pulse thundered in his ears as he turned, searching for a way to turn the tables. They were running out of time, and the agent was getting closer. He needed a plan. "I have an idea," Musk said, his voice low but decisive. "We can't fight him directly, but we can outsmart him. We have the advantage here, the environment." Maria and Derek exchanged wary glances. "What do you have in mind?" Derek asked, his voice tight with anxiety. Musk smiled grimly. "We use the layout of this place to our advantage. Let's create a trap." The agent moved closer, and for a brief moment, everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. Musk acted quickly, leading Derek and Maria deeper into the maze of crates. They ducked behind an industrial machine, using the cluttered space to their advantage, creating an illusion of movement and distraction. Musk knew the agent's confidence could be his downfall. If they could make him believe he was closing in on them, they could use his momentum against him. "Follow my lead," Musk whispered. "We're going to trap him in the corner." They moved swiftly, the tension rising with each step. The agent, too focused on Musk, didn't see it coming. He lunged forward, his blade gleaming, but Musk sidestepped, pushing a crate in the agent's path, causing him to trip and momentarily lose his balance. That was all they needed. Maria was on him in a flash, her handgun pointed directly at the agent's chest. "Freeze," she commanded. Her voice was sharp, but there was a tremor of fear in it. For the first time, the agent hesitated. His posture stiffened, his body coiled like a spring, ready to strike at any second. But Musk wasn't about to give him the chance. "Tell us who you work for," Musk demanded, his voice firm. "What's really going on here? Who's controlling this entire operation?" The agent's eyes glinted with something that Musk couldn't quite decipher. For a split second, he thought the agent might speak. But then the expression turned cold again, and the agent gave a short, bitter laugh. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning. You're playing into their hands." Before anyone could react, the agent reached into his jacket, pulling out a small device that emitted a bright, flashing light. The room filled with a disorienting buzz, and for a moment, everything around Musk seemed to blur. When the noise stopped, the agent was gone. Vanished. Like smoke in the wind. Maria swore under her breath, her gun still aimed at the spot where the agent had been. Derek scanned the area, his face pale with shock. What just happened? Musk didn't answer right away. His mind was already reeling. The agent hadn't just disappeared. He'd activated something, a device of some kind. A cloaking technology, perhaps, or a method of disorienting them long enough to escape. The feeling that they were being hunted had just become all too real. Musk's heart was still racing, but the adrenaline was starting to fade, leaving a heavy weight in its place. The agent, whoever he was, had just vanished before their eyes, leaving them with more questions than answers. Maria's gun lowered slowly, and Derek began pacing, his thoughts clearly spinning in a dozen different directions. "What the hell just happened?" Derek muttered, running a hand through his hair, frustration clear on his face. Musk wasn't sure what to make of it. The agent had moved like a ghost, leaving them no room to retaliate or even to get answers. He had said something before he disappeared, something that Musk couldn't shake. "You're playing into their hands." The agent's words echoed in Musk's mind, sending a chill down his spine. What had he meant? Who were they? And what was it that Musk had walked into? Maria, on the other hand, was already assessing their next move. "We can't stay here. The longer we linger, the more time they have to track us. We need to get out of here and figure out who's behind all of this." Her voice was tight, but Musk could hear the resolve there. She was right. Staying in the same place wasn't an option. The agent might be gone, but the danger was far from over. Musk nodded. "Agreed. But we can't just run blind either. We need intel. We need to know who's behind this." Maria grabbed her laptop, opening it as they began to move towards the exit. "I'll run a deeper analysis of the communications we intercepted earlier. If they left a trace, I'll find it." The trio moved quickly, exiting the building in haste, keeping to the shadows. The industrial district outside was eerily quiet, a few distant sounds of machinery echoing in the early morning light, but no one seemed to be around. It was the perfect cover for the agent to make his move, and perhaps the perfect cover for the people who had sent him. As they reached their vehicle, Musk glanced over at Maria, who was already typing furiously on her laptop. Derek was scanning the surroundings nervously, eyes darting back and forth. "Anything yet?" Musk asked, trying to keep the anxiety from his voice. Maria didn't look up. "I'm pulling up some background info now. It's not much, but the agent left behind a digital signature, something faint, but it's there. I'm tracing it." Derek shot a quick glance at Musk. "Do you think this is the end of it? This feels like more than just a hired hand. That agent wasn't just anyone. There's something bigger going on." Musk's mind was spinning, but he kept his focus. "It's not over. I know that much. And whatever's happening, we need to stop it before it's too late." A few moments passed in tense silence, the only sound coming from the hum of the laptop and the occasional car passing by. Finally, Maria looked up, her eyes sharp. "I've got something," she said, her voice suddenly more serious. "This wasn't just a random assignment. The digital signature connects back to a shadowy organization. I can't tell much yet, but it's a network of high-level operatives, all working together under one umbrella. Their reach is global." Musk's blood ran cold. Global? Who the hell are they? Maria closed her laptop with a sharp snap. "I don't know yet, but this isn't something small. Whoever is behind this has resources, and they've been pulling strings for a long time. These aren't just corporate mercenaries. This feels like a whole different level." Musk felt a weight in his chest as he absorbed her words. The implications were huge. They were up against something much bigger than Caldwell. Caldwell was a piece of the puzzle, sure, but he was just a pawn in a much darker game. Musk realized the stakes were much higher than he had originally thought. If this shadow organization had the power to send someone like the agent after him, then they were capable of much more than Musk had ever imagined. "What's our next step?" Derek asked, his voice heavy with concern. Musk took a deep breath. "We find out who's pulling the strings. If we want to stop them, we have to take them down at the source." Maria nodded, her expression grim. "I'll continue digging into the digital footprint. But we need to be careful. This isn't just a corporate war. We're dealing with something much darker." With that, they piled into the car, the air between them thick with tension and uncertainty. The city around them was quiet as they drove, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them with each passing minute. The silence was broken by Maria's voice again. "I've got a name." Musk's eyes snapped to her. "What name?" Maria's fingers flew across the laptop, pulling up information on the screen. "It's a figure in the shadows, someone who's managed to remain hidden for years. Their name is Valen. No first name, just Valen. But everything points to them being the mastermind behind this operation. They're linked to multiple high-level disruptions, political, corporate, you name it. Whoever they are, they've got power." The name hit Musk like a thunderclap. Valen. He'd never heard of this figure, but something about it felt familiar, as though he had brushed against them in his past without realizing it. It didn't matter now. What mattered was that this person, whoever they were, had orchestrated everything. And if Musk had any hope of stopping them, he would have to follow the trail wherever it led. But what had Valen's endgame been all along? Why target Musk? The answer was out there, but they were going to have to dig deeper, take risks, and face things they hadn't even imagined yet. They had a name. Now, they needed answers. "Let's find Valen," Musk said, his voice steely with determination. And with that, the next chapter of their dangerous journey began. The drive to their next location felt interminable, the steady hum of the engine the only sound breaking the silence. Musk sat in the back of the car, his mind still reeling from the discovery of Valen. He had spent years fighting against big corporations, space obstacles, and even public opinion. But this was something different, something far darker and more insidious than he'd ever expected. Maria continued to work on her laptop, her brow furrowed in concentration as she dug deeper into the digital trail they had found. Derek was in the passenger seat, glancing at Musk every few seconds, clearly restless, as if he could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on them. "You're not going to tell me we're just driving around hoping to stumble across this Valen character, are you?" Derek asked, his tone a mix of frustration and disbelief. Musk shook his head, eyes narrowing. "No, but we need to start somewhere. If we're going to go after this Valen, we need information, connections, a place where they might be. We can't just sit and wait for them to come to us." Maria finally looked up from her screen. "I found something. A lead. It's not much, but there's an old abandoned facility on the outskirts of the city. It was connected to some strange events from a few years ago, things that never got explained fully. A lot of disappearances, corporate sabotage, people who just vanished. The kind of people Valen would likely have used." Musk's curiosity piqued. "An abandoned facility? What's the connection?" "The facility was linked to a shadow tech company," Maria continued, her voice steady despite the gravity of what she was saying. "A company that went dark after a few questionable operations. Records were wiped clean, but there are traces of high-level security protocols being used there. This place might have been one of their safe houses, or worse, something they were using to operate under the radar." "So what do we do now?" Derek asked, glancing back at Musk. "We go in and risk walking straight into a trap?" Musk felt a surge of determination. "We don't have a choice. Valen's linked to this place, and we need to find out why. Whatever this facility holds, it could be the key to everything." The car's tires squealed as they made a sharp turn onto a quieter street. The city was beginning to fade into the background as they approached the outskirts, the lights growing more sparse, the buildings taller and more industrial. The air grew heavy with the weight of secrecy, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer, swallowing the road ahead. "Are we close?" Musk asked, looking at Maria, whose eyes were glued to the map on her screen. "Just a few more miles," she replied. "Stay alert. This area hasn't seen much traffic in years, and that's always a red flag." They were approaching the facility. The trees on either side of the road were thick and twisted, as though trying to hide the secrets buried within the earth. Musk couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, even though there was no sign of life anywhere. His instincts told him they were not alone, but there was no turning back now. They parked the car a few hundred yards from the entrance to the facility, hidden behind a cluster of trees. The place looked like a ghost town. Its faded concrete walls were cracked and overgrown with vines, the windows dark and lifeless. There was no sign of security or personnel, nothing that would indicate someone was protecting the facility. But Musk knew better. No place this quiet was ever abandoned for good. Derek checked his weapon. "Ready?" "Let's get to work," Musk replied, his voice low but resolute. The three of them crept out of the car, moving cautiously toward the facility. Every step felt like they were moving deeper into a trap, but there was no way to know for sure until they reached the heart of the operation. As they got closer, the imposing structure loomed above them, casting a shadow that seemed to stretch endlessly across the desolate landscape. When they reached the entrance, Maria quickly got to work, pulling out a set of tools to hack into the security system. She was swift and efficient, and after a few tense minutes, the locked door slid open with a soft metallic click. "Looks clear," Maria whispered, looking over her shoulder. "Let's move." Inside, the air was cold and musty, filled with the scent of mildew and decay. The facility had long since been abandoned, but remnants of its past operations were scattered throughout the space. Old computers, rusted machinery, broken-down equipment. Musk led the way, his heart pounding in his chest. They were getting closer to something. He could feel it in his bones. They moved through the darkened hallways, the sound of their footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. It was hard to tell if the place had been left behind in a hurry or if it had been gradually abandoned over time. There were signs of life here, but only the kind left behind in forgotten places. Maria stopped in front of a large metal door. She worked quickly again, tapping on her laptop as she bypassed the security lock. The door creaked open, revealing a room filled with files, documents, and old tech that looked like it had been untouched for years. "This is it," Maria said, her voice almost a whisper. "This room was used for data storage. There are more records here than we could ever sort through. But if Valen's been pulling the strings, there has to be something in here that connects him to everything." Derek's eyes narrowed as he looked around the room. What if it's a trap? What if they're expecting us? Musk didn't hesitate. "We've already walked into the lion's den. The only way out is through. Let's find what we came here for." As they combed through the room, Maria came across a set of files hidden deep in a secure cabinet. They were encrypted, but with her expertise, she was able to crack the code. The moment the files opened, Musk's eyes went wide with realization. "What is it?" Derek asked, stepping closer to see the screen. Maria's fingers hovered over the keys. "It's a list of names, dates, and locations, all of them tied to major corporate failures, disappearances, and political unrest. Valen's name is at the top of the list. But it's more than that. This is evidence of years of manipulation." Musk leaned over the laptop, his mind racing. The files showed a pattern: strategic moves in key locations, major players falling in line, all part of a calculated effort to control the world's most powerful assets. This wasn't just corporate sabotage. It was global manipulation on a scale that no one had ever suspected. Maria scrolled down the list. "And here, this is what we've been looking for. Valen's connected to a secret operation, a project that could change everything." Musk felt the blood drain from his face. "What project?" Maria's voice was cold as she spoke. "A project designed to infiltrate and control the most influential systems in the world. Governments, corporations, everything. Whoever controls this project controls everything." Musk stared at the screen, realization dawning. The project wasn't just a scheme. It was a revolution. And if Valen succeeded, the world as they knew it would be changed forever. The weight of the revelations in the files hit Musk like a tidal wave. This was far beyond corporate games or high-stakes business maneuvering. What he had just uncovered, what Maria had uncovered, was nothing short of a global conspiracy. A covert operation designed to silently seize control of everything: governments, economies, even the hearts and minds of the public. As the gravity of the situation settled in, a chilling realization crept over him. Valen wasn't just some shadowy figure. Valen was a mastermind, an architect of a future where power wasn't just controlled, it was engineered. The project wasn't some small-scale operation. It was an attempt to build an invisible empire, to hold the world in a chokehold. Musk turned to Maria. How much time do we have before they know we found this? If they're watching us, Maria cut him off. They're not watching us yet, but they will be. This operation has been so carefully hidden, but now that we have this information, they'll know we're a threat. She let out a heavy sigh. The people involved in this, they don't play by the rules. They won't hesitate to do whatever it takes to protect their power. Derek stepped forward, glancing over Maria's shoulder at the screen. So, what's next? We can't just waltz into the heart of this thing. They'll have eyes everywhere. We need to find their weakness, something we can use. Musk's mind was racing. The list Maria had uncovered was damning. Names, dates, specific operations, each one detailing a carefully orchestrated event meant to undermine or dismantle a key pillar of global influence: governments and major corporations. But what really stood out were the hidden operations listed under the Project Seraph. Project Seraph, Musk murmured, almost to himself. What's their endgame? Maria leaned in. The files show it still in its early stages, but its impact is already far-reaching. If we're right, Valen is using a network of highly placed agents to infiltrate and control the most powerful systems in the world. The project is designed to manipulate key events, crises, shifts in policy, economic crashes, all orchestrated from the shadows. Musk felt a chill race down his spine. A project designed to create chaos, but only so they can control the outcome. This isn't just about profit or power. It's about reshaping the world on their terms. Derek's voice came low and serious. Then what do we do about it? Musk turned his eyes to the screen. We take them down. Every single one of them. His voice was firm, resolute. We stop Project Seraph before it's too late. The files in front of them contained everything they needed to dismantle this operation: locations, operatives, and potential targets. But there was something else hidden between the lines. A deeper layer of connections. People who were still hidden, faces and names with no direct link to the operations. If they were going to expose Valen and everyone involved, they needed to understand these shadow figures, the ones behind the ones behind. Maria turned to Musk. We can't do this alone. We'll need help, and the people we'll be going up against won't be easy to take down. You've made enemies at the highest levels already, but this is something else entirely. Musk's thoughts flashed to his family, to his companies, to everything he had worked for. Could they be targeted, too? Could the people he cared about be drawn into this web of deception and control? I know, he said grimly, but it's already too late. If we don't act, we're giving them permission to take control. Everything we've built, everything we stand for, gone. This is about stopping a future where they pull all the strings. Maria nodded. Then let's figure out how to take this operation down. They gathered around the laptop, focused on the screen as Maria began sorting through the encrypted files. With each passing second, the tension mounted. Musk knew they had little time. Even now, the eyes of the world might be turning toward them, and the dark forces behind Valen's operation wouldn't hesitate to strike first. Suddenly, Maria's fingers stopped moving. She frowned, re-examining the data. There's something here I didn't notice before. A coded message within the files, something hidden in the metadata. She worked quickly, her face illuminated by the glow of the screen. Musk stepped closer, anxiety rising. What is it? I've cracked the code. This message, it's a meeting location. A place Valen and his team are supposed to meet. It's happening in 2 days. If we can get there first, we might be able to gather enough intel to expose them all. Derek's eyes narrowed. 2 days? That's cutting it close. We don't have a choice, Musk said, determination in his eyes. We go now, and we disrupt whatever plans they're setting in motion. If we wait, we might miss our chance. Maria quickly pulled up the coordinates on her map, marking the location. It was on the edge of a remote part of the city, a location that seemed deliberately chosen to avoid public attention. Musk knew that if this was their chance to take down Valen's network, they had to act fast. They couldn't afford to waste time. Every minute that passed, the conspiracy's web grew tighter, the chance of exposing it shrinking. "Let's get to work," Musk said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts raging inside his mind. They hurried to the car, their resolve hardening with each step. They had no illusions about the danger ahead, but the stakes were too high. The game had changed, and now it was all or nothing. As they drove toward the meeting location, the shadows of the night seemed to press closer around them. The city's lights faded behind them, and ahead loomed a place that felt like the heart of darkness. "Once we're in," Derek said, breaking the silence, "we can't back out. We do this, we're all in." Musk nodded, his eyes focused ahead. "We don't back out. Not this time." In 2 days, they would face Valen and his network. And in that moment, Musk realized that the battle for the world's future had begun. The car sped through the desolate roads, the city lights gradually fading as they ventured further from the populated areas. The hum of the engine seemed to match the tension building in the air. Musk sat in the back seat, his mind racing with 1,000 thoughts, each darker and more urgent than the last. They had uncovered the truth, the terrifying truth about Valen and Project Seraph, and now they were walking straight into the lion's den. Maria sat beside him, focused on her laptop, scanning the coordinates once again, ensuring they were heading in the right direction. Derek sat in the front, eyes on the road, but every so often, he glanced at Musk through the rearview mirror. His expression was unreadable, but Musk could tell that the gravity of their mission weighed heavily on him as well. "I don't like this," Derek finally spoke, his voice low. "The meeting location, it's too quiet, too hidden. It doesn't feel right." Musk understood. They were about to enter a territory where anything could go wrong. The very nature of Project Seraph was to be hidden, secretive, and fiercely protected. The closer they got, the more Musk could feel the weight of the decision hanging over him. There was no turning back now. They had uncovered too much. Maria looked up from her laptop. The building's in a remote industrial zone. No major security systems visible, but that doesn't mean there aren't others. "We'll need to be cautious." "Cautious?" Derek scoffed. "We don't have time for cautious. If they're already inside, we might as well walk straight into a trap." "Derek, we don't know that yet," Musk replied, his voice calm but firm. "We're going to do this our way. Stealthy, strategic." "You've been saying that for weeks now, Musk," Derek shot back. "But we're in deep now. It's all or nothing." Musk stared out the window, his thoughts momentarily drifting to his companies, his life, his family. He had everything to lose. But if they didn't act now, everything they had worked for would be swept away by the tides of corruption and control. There was no time to waste. Soon, the car slowed to a crawl as they neared the destination. The tall, rusting gates of the industrial zone came into view, its bleakness almost oppressive. The air felt thicker now, as if the very ground they were driving on was filled with unspoken secrets. Maria tapped her fingers on her laptop. "We're almost there." They parked the car several hundred feet away from the building. The industrial complex loomed in the distance, an eerie silhouette against the dark sky. The building was large, with a facade that looked abandoned at first glance, but there was an unsettling stillness about it, too quiet, too lifeless. Derek was the first to step out, his gun holstered, but his hand still resting close to it. "This is it, the calm before the storm." Musk stepped out next, his mind sharpened, his resolve unwavering. "Stay alert. We move in, we find what we need, and we get out. No unnecessary risks." They crept toward the building, the faint glow of their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The doors were locked, but it was a simple matter for Maria to bypass the security system with ease. Within moments, the heavy metal door groaned open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of old machinery. The space was cavernous, but the silence was deafening. The hallways seemed endless, winding through the depths of the building like a labyrinth. Musk's instincts were on high alert. It was too quiet. They should have encountered some kind of movement, some sign of life. But nothing. "This is wrong," Derek muttered, his voice low. "Where is everybody?" "They're here," Musk said quietly, his voice edged with certainty. "They've been expecting us." Maria led the way, following the map she'd found in the encrypted files. The deeper they went into the building, the more oppressive the air felt. The walls were lined with old machinery and scattered files, but nothing that indicated any kind of recent activity. They reached a heavy door at the end of a hallway, the temperature in the room noticeably colder as they approached. Maria paused and glanced at Musk. "This is it. The meeting room." Musk motioned for them to move into position. They couldn't afford to be careless now.